I'm Dave, the CEO and founder of Chartio. Excited to talk to you guys. Excited to be here hosting this event with Panoply. And we're going to talk today about data governance, especially for decentralized analytics companies. And so I think there's 4 stages. You can go to the next slide. I see 4 stages that companies go through when working with all the customers that we have. And the customers go throughout their lifetime in analytics. And so each stage, the first is KPI Pulls, second stage is Data Heroes, third stage is Centralized, and the fourth is Decentralized. And so these are the stages companies go through with their analytics platforms. And I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of each, and obviously the last stage, the Decentralized, we think is the ideal stage. That's the stage that we try to get our customers to. It's actually the whole mission of Chartio is to bring people to that stage where everyone can work with data. And so next slide. So the first is KPI Pulls. And this is basically the stage, usually it's a small startup or a company that data doesn't matter to all that much. And you're just basically running a SQL command every once in a while to pull back a statistic. And so like Y Combinator companies, for example, in the very beginning, for the first 3 months, they have everyone choose one metric that matters to the company and just track that metric and report on it every week. So this has some benefits in that it's really cheap. Obviously, you don't really need any tooling. You can use a tool, but you don't need one. And it's really focused, so you're just focused on what is the one thing that matters for your company. Obviously, there's a lot of downsides. You have almost no visibility in anything else. But usually, this is for companies that their data they don't have enough data. They're still building the product. They've only got, like in this guy's case, 23 users, and so they don't need to get serious about their data. Next, we have the Data Hero stage, and that's where maybe your company gets some funding. You get bigger. You have more users or whatever your company does. And somebody on the team takes it upon themselves to go get a little bit more serious about analytics. We call this person the data hero. Often it's a founder or somebody in marketing or somebody like a product manager or something like that. And they go out and get a tool like Chartio and make a bunch of dashboards for the rest of the company. There's a lot of pros to this. It's relatively inexpensive. It's still pretty focused. You only have a handful of dashboards. But it doesn't scale all that well. It can be a little bit hacky because it's not really that person's job to know much about this, and the data's not all that organized or scalable. You're just kind of getting charts that work. Third is Centralized, and so these stages aren't really steps. Some people just only go to 3 and stay in 3. Some people just skip over the third stage, which Natasha, who's presenting next, is doing that. And so the Centralized stage, this is kind of traditional BI, and it's basically, once you need to do a lot more with analytics, you hire a whole bunch of people on your team, a whole data team, and those people are responsible for anything having to do with data. And if you're on the marketing team or support team or sales team, and you want to know something about your data, you go through these guys. And so there's some benefits to that in that it's very organized, it's very consistent. The downsides, which are many as well, is as you can see in this image here, there's a whole bunch of people lined up asking questions of this guy. So there's a lot of bottlenecks to that, and only certain people, are allowed to really dig into that data. It can also get really expensive because the more serious you want to get about data, that means you actually have to add more and more people. So it scales expensively. Tools for this. Chartio works well. Other tools work well at this too. Like BI tools are kind of traditionally designed to work in this centralized model. And then, Redshift or Panoply, this is about the stage where you want to get serious about having a data warehouse. And so you either put Panoply or Redshift or BigQuery or whatever you want to use for a warehouse. And then last, and this is kind of the Shangri-La, this is where you kind of flip the role and you go from giving a man a fish to teaching a man a fish, and the people in the data team are actually playing more mentor, advisor roles for everyone in the company, and the people in those business roles in sales and marketing and success are actually making their own charts and digging through the data themselves, and they have access to that. And this is ultimately, I feel, the best. It's a relatively new thing that's possible in the market. So with this, you have the highest visibility. More people in your company are really going to know and understand and be close to their data. And there are a number of cons, which I'm going to go into we're going to drill into what decentralized data is like and how to get there. So next, and we'll skip this one too. So the benefits, I just want to re-emphasize that when somebody in marketing can actually immediately react to their leads being cut in half, like why are leads down, or what are my channels doing, when they can play with that data and dig through it themselves, because that data is more meaningful to them, it adds so much more value to your business, just an order of magnitude or 2 or even 3 orders of magnitude more value to your business. When those people can dig through it themselves, you get faster insights, and those people actually know the context of that data, rather than asking a data scientist, go figure out like which channels are best for us. Well, they only know so much about that data. And so, yeah, and ultimately, also this is great for data teams because, I've met so many brilliant data scientists who maybe have a PhD or a master's, or really great at statistics, and they know how to code, and they're really good at R, and they spend 90% of their time just running a report for their manager, or running reports for different people in the org. And their skills are really underutilized. And so if you can move to this decentralized model and let the people in the company do the reports and do their own analytics, everyone's going to be happy. It's win-win all around. Those people can work on more interesting things. All right, we'll go next. There are a lot of challenges to decentralize, and we're going to go into each one of these. Hit next. But do not despair. These are all really solvable problems, and they're really valuable once you do solve them. So this is a little superhero I like to use called the data governor. And all these things, these solutions to solve, are all around data governance and just having really good practices with your data and having a good process for your company to work around. So the first problem is there's a large load on databases. So we had a customer, Shazam, and Shazam came to us a year ago and was like, Dave, our biggest problem with Chartio is how successful Chartio's been. And at any given moment, there's like 300 people refreshing a dashboard and slamming our Redshift instance with just a crazy amount of queries. And so since then, we've done a lot of things in the product to make, caching. We added another layer of caching. And so we've done a lot of things that are useful. And we also taught them how to do a few more things, sizing their Redshift, optimizing their Redshift. Actually, Shazam was like maxed out on their Redshift already. If you don't have a person in-house to do this, Panoply's great at that. They automate this with their machine intelligence. So really, really can help you out. We also, if you're really running into these data problems where the load's too big, make summary tables. Chartio has a tool that helps you make summary tables even easier. We call it data stores. Run query audits every once in a while. Look at what are the biggest culprit queries. Maybe somebody ran something really crazy and wonky. It's okay. Just go in and audit that, try to fix it for them, maybe put it into a summary table instead of querying that 30 billion rows raw every time. And then just call automated processes. Next. Another problem I hear people talk about is that not everybody in the company knows the data. I can't give this to the marketing team because they don't know what the data is. If you hit next. And my answer to that is always, of course they don't. No one's given them access to that data. So if you hired a new data scientist today, they wouldn't know the data either because you haven't given them access to it. So what you need to do is just give them access in a great tool like Chartio, dropping that in there, so that they can explore that data and dig around it and understand it. I really feel some people say like, business users just aren't smart enough to work with data. You got to hire these engineers, and I think that's just really wrong. I think anybody with an 8th grade math education can learn how to query data with a really great product. And I think the people who say that are the same people who in the 80s said nobody would be using computers, and that's just like living in the past. The future is definitely around everyone in the company being able to explore their data themselves. So next. Another issue that comes up when you have democratized data is you run into a lot more data inconsistencies. This is a good thing. When more people use your product, you're going to run into more bugs. It's not something to shy away from. It's just how it works. So data inconsistencies are when it's really, really annoying. It's one of the most annoying things in data. It's when like your head of marketing comes and says, "This is how many leads I delivered," and your head of sales comes and says, "This is how many leads I got, and they're not the same number. And then arguments could, happen, and everyone argues. It's really annoying. But that happens. It just happens all the time. There are different data sets. There are different products. People run different queries. So you just need to have a good process for solving those, to quickly resolve those issues and make sure it's better for the next person who comes along and queries those two data sets. And so some people stay with the centralized model because you'll have less inconsistencies, but you don't really. You're just kind of hiding more of them. So it's really important to just have a good process for dealing with those and realize that's just part of life when working with data. There's going to be some inconsistencies. Just keep solving them. And I like to quote the Boy Scout rule. The Boy Scout rule is that you should always leave your campsite cleaner than you found it. And people use it in coding all the time. Leave your code set cleaner than you found it. I think it also applies to data. So leave your data set cleaner than how you found it. The next problem is it can get messy. When you have everyone in your company working on projects, building dashboards, building charts, it can get just insanely messy, just as any project that a whole bunch of people work on can get. And so some tips for that, have some people in your team that go through it every once in a while. Archive. Just archive things that aren't just being used anymore. People want to hoard and keep that stuff around. It's okay to archive it. You can find it later. Organize people in permissions and groups, and be kind of staunch about permissions. Some people are all about transparency and saying like, oh, we want everybody to be able to see everything. And I think that's great and all, but at some point, transparency just becomes like data hoarding and data overload. And so you should really do a little bit of work to cull the experience and what people see. And it's kind of hidden at the end thing. Oh, and naming things clearly. Name dashboards, name data sets, keep clean models for people so that you can really explore that. And lastly, on dashboards here, I see all the time, I actually had a customer come and say, like, Dave, can you increase the scrolling speed on these dashboards? And I said, why? And they had 200 charts and went down. And every time they added a new one, they had to scroll all the way to the bottom and tack this onto the end. And I said, it's really easy in Chartio to just make a new dashboard, and they link to each other. So you can make links that click to other sources, and you can also drill down on charts that bring you to another dashboard. And so whatever tool you're using, like, don't just put everything in one spot. It's a really good practice to split it up and organize it. And that helps with the mess. So yeah, that's everything. I think like if you follow these things, it's not that hard. You just need to create and designate some people on your team to be the data governors, to go through and just kind of clean up things every once in a while. Make sure there's good practice of having clean up those models. Make sure people have clean data models, and then you're going to end up having just a much better time with your organization. Everyone else can run the reports. You're just there kind of facilitating and organizing everybody. Everybody's going to be happier. Your business is going to do much, much better with the decentralized way. So, thanks a lot.